My name is Gavin Evans, and this is my review of Ozark Season 3. And this will be a spoiler-filled review, so if you haven't seen it, go and watch it, then come back and watch my review because I will be going in depth. And if you've watched my reviews for Ozark Seasons 1 and 2, you know that I don't love this show. I know lots of people love it and they call it one of the best shows ever, and I just don't get that, even remotely. Like, the performances are good, there's some good moments, but it's almost never great, and it just doesn't do much for me, and it's way too long. So, what did I think of this season? More of the same, but this season does have some of the best stuff of this show so far. I'm going to break it apart plot line by plot line. There's no specific order for it, it's just going to be a very random review. So the first plot I'm going to talk about is the entire FBI investigating the casino plot, and in the very first episode, I like seeing the casino being used. They've talked about it for all of season 2, and now it's functional. We're seeing how it operates, and I like seeing that. But then immediately the FBI starts to investigate it, and I feel like you should set up the casino a bit more before the FBI get involved, because they're like, okay, we're going to go ahead and investigate it, and then just nothing really happens with that plotline for the vast majority of this season. And it's a good idea to go that route, but they did it in such an ineffective way. And Marty trying to turn the FBI agent was really stupid. For someone who is as smart as he is, that was a really dumb decision. And then we've got the therapist plotline, which I didn't know was going to be a plotline, but it eventually turns into one. And when we first see them talking at a therapist and then afterwards we see Marty paying her, I'm just like, oh, okay, that's kind of a funny moment. It kind of reveals a bit more about his character, and it's just a funny little side gag. But then they keep playing up on it more and more throughout the season until it becomes this big plot line, and I'm just like, oh no, this should have just been a one and done. No, I don't care what's going on here now. And just, it should have been in the first episode, he pays her off for the next session, and that's just it. I don't think it needed to be brought up again. But the fight that Wendy and Marty do get into eventually was a really well done moment. So there's that. And then we've got the plot line focusing on Wyatt and Darlene. And I have zero issue with relationships with a big age difference. As long as it's legal and it's consensual, no issues whatsoever. But I didn't buy this relationship for a single second. There was nothing about these two characters that should have worked or did work. And anytime they try to make it seem like they actually love each other, I just didn't buy for a single second. Like, Darlene's husband, like lifelong husband, has been dead for what, a couple months? That's it, and now she's... it's just... I didn't buy it. When Zeke gets brought up again, I still don't care about Zeke. I don't know why everybody cares about Zeke so much. That plotline could just be thrown out entirely. And I just still don't like Wyatt. I think he's a very bland character, and the conflict between him and Ruth just... I didn't really care for. I prefer Ruth when she's around the Board family because there's more tension, there's more drama, and this stuff, it just feels so unnecessary. Anytime they spend time with these characters and this plotline, I'm just like, yeah, like this is the least interesting stuff by far. And that's saying a lot for this show. Then we've got the entire drug war element. And when this season began, that opening scene was maybe the most brutal this show's been so far. And I'm just like, okay, let's see where they take this storyline. And they mention it a few times, but you don't really feel the weight of it in any way, so it ended up being irrelevant. Then you've got the storyline involving Helen and her kid, Aaron. And I actually like the idea of this plotline being present because it can give the kids something more to do and it can create an additional layer of tension. But then when everything does come crashing down and Aaron freaks out at her mom, that moment was so underwhelming and poorly done that it just left a sour taste in my mouth for the entire plotline. I like the idea of it. It definitely should have been present this season, but I wish it was a bigger aspect of it. And then we've got the plotline involving Frank and Frank Juno, and anytime these characters appear, I'm just like, why are they here? There's enough villains already. Like, you've got Navarro, Helen, Darlene, the FBI. Do we really need these two bland, boring characters as well? No, we don't. They're just so unnecessary. But I did like the scene where Ruth saws Frank Jr. off the boat. That was great. But then we get to the big plotline of this season, and it's easily my favorite aspect of this show so far, and it's everything regarding Ben this season. His introduction was good, but it was very unclear because I didn't get the fact that he was mentally ill from it. And looking back, I get that they're trying to set it up, but it really didn't come across that way because everyone in his classroom is looking at a picture and he's just like, okay, what are you guys looking at a picture of? And then he sees it and then he gets really mad and just throws all the phones into a wood chipper. And my first thought isn't that he's mentally ill. My first thought is that whatever was on everyone's phone infuriated him. And if I'm being honest, my first thought of that situation was that he was probably a pervert. Now, they didn't go that route, and I'm perfectly okay with that, but it was just a very messy way of introducing him. The scene itself was good, but it could have set up the character better. But one consistent element of this show is that the performances are all really good. That said though, Tom Pellephrey gives easily the best performance of this show so far because he is absolutely fantastic in it. I looked it up. He didn't get nominated for any Emmy Awards or anything, and I think that's a real shame because he is, I'm going to go ahead and say it, he's phenomenal in this season. Now, I love the fact that he's like the most human character and he meets Ruth and he falls in love with her and he just brings some good to her. For a character who's been so down in the dumps, who's dealt with a shit hand all her life, for someone to love her for who she is, I like that aspect of it. And then even just what he brings to the family dynamic, he kind of brings back those childhood memories of Wendy, and he's just a nice presence to have around. But when things start to progress and he starts to realize what's going on and he starts acting in the worst possible ways, it's so complex because everything that he's reacting about is totally justified, but also he shouldn't react to it. So it's one of those things that's just like, it's very tricky. And because that he does react to it, he still humanizes this entire aspect. That scene where they decided to put him back into the institute was legitimately one of the most emotional moments of this entire show. You feel the weight of what's happening to him and you feel how broken up he is about it. And then when Ruth goes and sees him, I thought that was a really powerful moment. And then you understand why Ruth did what she did next, but by doing so, she basically got him killed because she didn't know him as well as she thought he did. And it's easily the most complex and emotional stuff in the show yet, and it's a shame that it's primarily only present for 2 episodes of this season. The last 3 episodes of this season are easily the best episodes of this show so far, Fire Pink being my absolute favorite. And then the next episode, we've got him on the run, and he just acts so dumb, but like it's from a good place. You know, he acts stupid, but then he gets mad at how stupid he acts, but then he goes ahead and acts stupid again, and then you understand Wendy's frustration and her ultimate decision to leave him behind to get killed, and you feel the weight of it. Wendy being devastated by her choice though was quite tragic. So everything we got in Ben this season, I really dug. Now let's talk about some of the other characters. Wendy, I did not like how they treated Wendy this season because at the end of season 2, it became clear that she liked this lifestyle and that she wanted to stay in it. And it just feels like they backtracked on that element of her character, which I would have found to be really refreshing. And they still try to paint her as some sort of victim, and I'm just over it. She's not a victim, she's a bad person doing bad things. They had a chance to get out and she ruined it. And I wish the show looked down on her for making the decisions she did as much as I do. And that one scene where she goes back to their old house and vandalizes it, I thought was really stupid. Marty, I liked how they humanized him at the end of season 2, but I feel like they kind of resort back to who he was in season 1. he just doesn't have that same sense of humanity that he gained in season 2. That one episode where he goes missing was actually probably another one of my favorite episodes of this show so far, because you do feel the weight of his absence and how much everyone depended on him. But when he comes back the next episode, it just lacked any sort of impact, and he's just, keeping a straight face, like, no, get to business. And I just wish they used that as another opportunity to humanize him. Then we've got Woo, and like I said, I like the stuff between her and Ben this season, even though Ben does get killed off, and it feels like season 1, Woo gets her uncle killed, and she's upset about what she had to do to her uncle. Season 2, her dad gets killed, and she's upset about that. And then season 3, Ben gets killed. And it just feels like they're kind of treading on the same ground for Woo constantly in how they're treating her. That one scene where she almost dies wasn't really effective, and then she just ends up being fine 2 days later. And then there's this one line that she says to Nelson, the guy who killed her dad, that just felt so out of place. And then you've got Jonah and Charlotte, who I like the fact that they try to give them more to do involving Aaron. I just wish they focused on that way more. Jonah being shocked at what his mom did at the last episode, I didn't really buy. Like, you should know who your mom is by this point. And the fact they backtracked on everything regarding Charlotte in season 2 about how she wanted to get emancipated and all that. And now she's just like, oh, if you go to CLP, I'm good now. Even though that wasn't an issue she even had. She wanted to leave behind this lifestyle. So they completely backtracked this character. I wonder if season 4 she's going to want to leave this life behind again. I guess we'll see. But yes, fairly poorly written. On my notes here, I've got a what should have been of Ozark season 3. And I think these are some good notes. They should have played up Helen and Aaron's story more to give the kids more to do. Then that way the adults, things are running smoothly and they just have to deal with Ben. And maybe the FBI starts coming into play later in the season, ramping up tension. The therapist storyline could be, just thrown away entirely. Same with the Wyatt and Darlene storyline. We don't need that. And that's it. Oh, and also each episode being about 35 to 40 minutes long. That would be a much better length. You do that, and I think this season could have been really good. But that said, just like my complaints with the other 2 seasons, is that I spent 10 hours watching this show, and there is some great moments in this season, but it doesn't need that much length. This show isn't that interesting to justify that length. And one last thing I want to talk about with this season is at the very end of Helen getting killed, I'm not sure if I'm reading it wrong, but it seemed like to me that Helen wasn't planning on killing the Bald family. It seems like she was trying to get them out of it. That she was going to try to place them in a witness protection program. That she has come to care for them and she does want to protect them, but they interpret it as she's trying to kill them. And then that's when they start playing defense and try to turn Navarro against her. And the fact that he ends up killing her is some really tragic irony. And maybe I'm reading what happened wrong, but if that is indeed the case, I really wish they played that up a bit more. And, Helen should know how smart they are, and if that is what's happening, she should have known that the Bard family would find out about this and how they would take it. So, I hope that's the angle they were going for, and it gets played up more, but I'm not entirely sure. But yes, overall, this is easily my favorite season of the show so far, but I still don't love it and not really like it. It's 10 hours long when it really doesn't need it to be. It's far too stretched out, and even though there's some great actual emotional elements of the season, there's lots of other stuff that really bogs it down that I couldn't have cared less about. The performances are once again consistently great, from Jason Bateman to Julia Garner to Laura Linney, but especially to Tom Pelphrey this season. But the writing just isn't all there. So I'm going to go ahead and give Ozark Season 3 a 5 out of 10 with a slight lean towards a recommendation. So, yes. Anyways, have you seen Ozark Season 3? What did you think about it? Let me know in the comments down below. Make sure you like, make sure you comment, make sure you subscribe. Stay tuned for some more videos soon, and Gavin out.